This is the CompuSports Radio Network.
Welcome to this special edition of Coach's Corner that we call The Mesh Point. Produced for Option Central and brought to you by the CompuSports Radio Network. I'm John Anderson, your host, and with me today is the gentleman who invented lobster casserole, Coach Jerry Campbell from California. How you doing?
I am doing great, and I'm glad to be on your show today. And I'm excited about talking some option football.
Oh, not lobster casserole, huh?
I'll leave that to my beautiful wife. Oh, gosh.
Coach Jerry Campbell has written more articles and put together more books than I can count, and probably more than Carter has liver pills. He has an abundance of information out there, and today, since we can't talk about all of the things that he's done, we're going to talk about a couple of them: Option on Me and Pairing Best Options. Had an opportunity to listen to his clinics and listen to his webinars and different things that he's done over the years. He's an excellent teacher, and he even writes well. He even writes where I can understand it.
Oh, sometimes I hope I can.
Coach, let's talk first about Option on Me.
Okay. You know, back in when I was coaching at Texas A&M Kingsville, I came up with this idea. You know, we got into, 2 back-to-back years. We got it real deep into the NCAA playoffs, and we ended up losing semifinal game for a national championship, and then we lost a quarterfinal game for a national championship. And I started taking a look at what breaks some of these plays down, and as I went through a ton of film, I started looking at the outside linebackers, which a lot of guys will call overhang players or hybrids, and started to see that a lot of the things that were being dictated on how the option was working was based upon them. And the next thing was the alley player, which is the free safety. So I came up with a method of putting our quarterbacks in the best position for running the best option based upon blocking schemes, and I came up with Option on Me.
In order to follow along with what Coach Campbell is talking about, you can download the Option on Me article from OptionCentral.net. Just go into the directory and find it, and then you can watch it and follow along with us as we're talking about this. Coach, explain to me how you came up with Option on Me, because everybody has a different way of doing things.
John, I've been working with Option on Me and teaching it to coaches all over the country now for probably, I don't know if it's been 20-plus years now. But the way I came up with this approach to putting our offense in the best option, and especially giving our quarterbacks a systematic way to read this, I was watching a lot of film, and like I had mentioned before, we got deep into 2 NCAA national playoff games and ended up losing them. And us being an option team there at Texas A&M Kingsville, I took a long look at what was breaking some of these plays down when we would sit there and run the option. And as I looked at it, what was dictating some of the things that were going wrong, we weren't accounting for the overhang players. And we needed to be able to come up with something that would take their best athlete out of the game, which is the free safety, which was, most people will know as the alley player. So I came up with Option on Me, and that was reading the outside linebacker for the best option. But I have to be able to tell you, what coaches need to understand is this: I'm only going to coach what I know how to fix. And if coaches don't have a lot of confidence in their quarterbacks reading these types of things, I don't think they need to put it in. If you got a systematic way to teach, then your kids have a systematic way to learn. So I'm going to go out there and only coach what I know how to fix. And what I learned is that those overhang players were the biggest influences on some things going wrong in the option game. So I came up with this system on being able to account for those hybrids or overhang players by designing Option on Me, which I call reading wax in Mickey's ear. And the bottom line is, John, when we go out there as coaches, and I've been very fortunate to be on a lot of championship football teams, you as a coaching staff have to be able to plan like a champion. Your kids have to prepare like one. And then you have to go out and practice like a champion. I mean, learning comes through repetition. So when we hit the field, man, I'm asking our kids and coaches to give 150% effort. And once 150% effort, it's going out there and not letting any grass grow underneath your feet, because kids will learn by doing. So repetition is the key to all this. So we need to go out and perform like a champion, both staffs and players on Friday night. I took a look, and, I'm very involved, too, in the history of the game. And so for listeners that don't know who invented the option, it was Don Farrat back in 1941 when he was watching a basketball game. And he then was the head football coach at the University of Missouri, was looking at 2-on-1 situations in basketball. And he decided then that he wanted to apply that to the game of football. So he came up with the option game.
And for those of you who haven't heard that particular interview, you can go back into one of the older Coach's Corner interviews, and I believe, I'm going to have to go back and check this, I think it was volume 41, where Coach Campbell goes into a lot of the aspects and the history of the game. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time with that since we've already covered it, but let's go ahead and continue.
Okay, so what we came up with in regards to option on me was reading the outside linebackers for best option, which I came up with reading Wax and Mickey's ear. If you were to look at the ears on Mickey, just as if you were going to Disneyland, I looked at those overhang players. An overhang player is any outside defender that's playing at the same level as the linebackers. So for our quarterback, in regards to his progressions and everything, he would look outside the box, so he'd look outside the open side tackle, and if you do play with the tight end, he'd look outside that area at the same level as those linebackers. So when we came up with this, I gave him 3 options. So and what I did with that in regards to option on me, our quarterback had 3 choices. If he looked to the open-ended side away from the tight end and he saw no overhang player, we're running inside veer. All right, inside veer is running at a 5 technique, so our quarterback reads the 5 technique. A lot of coaches will sit there and count the box. So what I came with is, hey, I don't know if some of our guys can count that high, so I'm going to use a visual.
I know, I question my own ability to count that high, so.
Yeah, so I came up with a visual that puts us in the best option a lot faster based upon a look-see by the quarterback when he looks outside that box to look for those overhang players. So to an open-ended side, and if you are a flexbone type team, you've got 2 open-ended sides, so inside there is best run to a 1 technique. So you can also use that as the key indicator for running inside veer. But if there is no overhang player to the open-ended side away from the tight end, we're running inside veer. If the quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage, John, and once he goes underneath that, prior to going underneath that center, and he sees an overhang or hybrid to the open side, that means he's going to take his look-see now to the other side towards his tight end or towards the strength. And the first place he's going to look for or look at is at that offensive guard. And if he sees a 2 to a 3 technique, which a 2 technique for some coaches that don't understand alignments is a head-up defender on that guard, and a 3 technique is an outside shade on the guard. So the first place he'll look is to that area, and if his eyes have taken him away from that open-ended side, he'll look right there, and if there is a 2 or a 3, he's putting us into the midline. And once again, for our listeners and for the coaches out there, I want to keep our offensive line in the best possible blocking scheme that I can get them in, and that's what those hybrids are doing for us, because in the option game, by reading outside inverse for best option, we are always going to have 1 more blocker than they have defender. So quarterback looks to that offensive guard, John, and if he sees that 2 or 3, he's putting us into the midline. The next option he has, and the midline is only towards the tight end. Or if you're a flexbone team where you're running those double slots, like Air Force or Navy, those types of teams, what you're going to do is look for the 3 technique, put yourself into that best option, which would be the midline. So inside veer to an open side, midline to a tight side, and if there's no 2 or 3, the quarterback is going to put us into load option. And I'd like to say a little bit about the load. Most people will understand load option as load the in men on the line of scrimmage. Load option for me is load the best football player on the field, and that's usually the free safety, who is the alley player. So we want the alley player. We want to take him out of the game, if at all possible, and let the quarterback have the outside overhang player. So if a defense is trying to defend the midline, they take that 2 or 3 technique away. What we're going to do is then, if he sees a 1 technique, which is an inside shade of a guard or a shade on the center, what he's going to do is put us into load option, because what it ended up happening there, defenses have started to defend that midline because they know we like to run to the tight end with that play. So they squirm their defenses down, and are probably now getting into their underfronts. And most people will understand an underfront as being a 1 to a 5 and a 9 technique. So he'll put us into load. And what this has all done is put that offensive line into best blocking scheme. So that's how that starts. And benefits of option on me, it's going to put our offense into best play. And option on me also, by reading those overhang players, negates computerized scouting, John. And it puts pressure on a defense, and how are they going to take all 3 of those options away? Another thing that you can do, and coaches can do with an option on me benefit, is that it can put their offense into a no-huddle scheme, which puts it into a hurry-up type of an offense. So those are some of the benefits of doing that.
Now, Coach, I know you've seen almost every defense known to man since you've been trying to run this option. You've seen loads, you've seen gap schemes, overhangs of all sorts. I am sure that you have seen defenses walking guys up into the box and walking them back away from the box, trying to confuse your quarterbacks. What is one of the things that you tell your quarterback in relationship to all these multiple defenses that are out there today?
Okay, it's very easy, because by reading those outside overhang players, it teaches our quarterback to understand defensive alignments. Because let's start with the inside veer. With option on me, if we see an overhang player to the open-ended side, we're going to the tight side. And then what ends up happening was, because most defenses will balance the field up, because an option attack is going to spread the field. All right, because they got to get out on those edges and defend this option game. So what ends up happening is they end up getting into balanced fronts. And if our quarterback sees that overhang player to the open side, we are going towards the tight end, because we're going to have you outnumbered by 1, and that quick visual will tell us that. But what the quarterback will do at that point, if there is no overhang player to the open-ended side, he's looking to see if there's a 1 technique. If he sees a 1 technique to the open-ended side, that's probably you're going to have a 5-1 technique, which gives your offensive tackle the best blocking inside release to that play side linebacker that he can get. And I want to make sure to tell coaches this: if your quarterback puts you into inside veer to an open side, that means your tackle is going to get a ton of reps during the week running inside veer to a 5 and a 1 technique. And you got to make sure when that tackle on his inside release works up to that play side linebacker, and that linebacker scrapes over the top, especially if he is the quarterback player, you don't want to chase him, because if that offensive tackle on his inside release chases that play side linebacker and he chases him outside the box, he's going to cloud the read of the quarterback up. So what we tell that offensive tackle is this: if the play side linebacker scrapes over the top, you're going to turn back inside for the first opposite colored jersey you see. But the beauty of our option on me is this: if that quarterback put us into inside veer, they must have had that overhang player wasn't there, or what he was doing was playing a too high safety, or they rolled him over towards the tight end side because of our ability to run that side so often if he was to the open side. So they'll start to remove him to defend that other side, or play him as a too high or 4 high safety, into quarters coverage to sit there and run those alleys. So we can remove him by doing all this. But the beauty, again, of option on me, if that overhang player is missing, you have got that defense beat by 1, because they're missing a defender, because they've moved him to the other side. And you don't care if your tackle misses that play side linebacker, because if he misses him, they've only had 2 to defend 3 players, and that's the 5 technique and the play side linebacker. So that's what makes that visual so nice for the quarterback if he puts us in the inside there, because they're missing 1 guy to defend 3. So that usually is going to make that inside veer work. And another thing that coaches would want to look at if they're playing with an overhang and you want to run the inside veer, you can remove him by formation or motion of a flanker or by a slotted defender. So you can remove that defender out of the game if you'd like to do that. So inside veer, best run to a 5 and a 1 technique as we move on through that. So that's the beauty of that thing for running inside veer, because you're going to beat him by 1.
Jerry Campbell is my guest. We'll be talking more about Option on Me when we come back. And if we're real lucky, we'll get into some other real fine stuff here right after this break.
This is the CompuSports Radio Network.
Easy Cut from CompuSports is a fast and enjoyable way to edit and analyze your game videos. Watch entire games on your computer, then label and index plays with a click of a mouse. Copy scenes to CD, DVD, or a memory stick, and upload to online video sharing sites like YouTube. Search and sort plays by keywords. Then pause, restart, rewind, and even watch frame by frame for fast and detailed video analysis. Easy Cut is compatible with XP, Vista, and Windows 7. Download the 21-day free trial now or order on CD and discover how easy it is to start analyzing your game videos today.
This segment is sponsored by Easy Cut. Now available as low as $9.95 a month or $79.99 a year. Easy Cut available at CompuSports.com.
Jerry Campbell is my guest here on the Mesh Point, and if you go back and listen to some of the older Coach's Corner radio shows and some of the older volumes, you'll find him back there in a couple of places. One of which he was talking about the option game. The other one he was talking about the history of the game. That was some really great stuff in there. Make sure you catch that. And if Coach Campbell tells you he's going to pay for dinner, he's going to keep his word, doggone, no matter how many times I tried to slide a credit card to that young lady. Son of a gun. I thought I had him beat, too.
Well, let me tell you, the next time I see you, I'm taking you up on it.
I know. I tell you, it was a great time with Coach Campbell and Coach Reardon out there in Charlotte, and we had Coach Joe Daniel out there and his group. That was a lot of fun out there in Charlotte. So, Coach, let me ask you a question regarding the amount of film that you watch. I know you talked about that a little bit earlier, and I know that most of us have heard the story about Ernie Adams. For those of you who don't know who Ernie Adams is a feller who has followed Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots around for many years, and I think they started in someplace in Ohio or Michigan together, and he was with Coach Belichick on a number of moves that he's made. And this is a guy who's only done 2 interviews that I can find in his entire career, one of which was his alma mater at Northwestern, and unrelated interview. But this is a guy who goes down, he gets down into the vault, and he slams that big iron door down there, and he watches tons and tons of film. And I think he's one of the reasons why Coach Belichick is so successful. How much film do you feel you need to watch, and how much film have you watched in putting this together?
Well, how many hours? I don't even know if I can count that high. But, I've watched lots of film, and I enjoy watching film, so I believe that, that comes with the territory, and you need to be watching. What I've gotten myself into now is when I watch film, just like anybody else, I want to start looking at the way kids are being coached. Because the way kids are being coached are the way kids are going to react. So that's what I'm looking for, because I want to look and see how kids will react to an inside release. I want to see how they will react to let's say, an offensive tackle pulling or a guard pulling, all those types of things. So I want to look at reaction, because by looking at film, I can kind of get an idea what their coach is made up of, what he's teaching those kids. So I'm going to call plays based upon, or our quarterback put us in situation based upon how we feel kids are going to react to certain movements. So, yeah, I'm going to watch a lot of film doing that, but I can tell you right now, the toughest thing that I believe a coach can do is work up in the box on Friday night and be able to feed his coach down on the field information. I've been on the phones with coaches, and this is what they end up doing. Our opponent makes a big play, and I ask them, hey, what happened? I don't, and the response, what just happened? Where did we break down at? And the coach upstairs say, I don't know, but that was a heck of a run. And I'm going to sit there and tell them, heck, I can see that. That ain't what I'm interested in hearing. What happened just now? But for me, to facilitate this, I'm going to teach coaches up in the box on how to quickly understand what's going on by looking at those overhang players. Because I know if there's an overhang player, I know pretty much have a great idea how they're lining up inside the box for that defensive front. So if I see an overhang player open side, there's a real good chance that he's playing that defensive end's playing as a 5 or a heavy 4 technique, which is head up on a tackle. So I'm looking at overhang players. Yeah, I'm going to look at lots of film, and I love watching film, but I'm looking to find out how these coaches are coaching their kids, because I can tell that by certain reactions, and that's going to set the game plan.
I was talking with my wife last night. My wife was a star forward in basketball in high school. And she absolutely knows nothing about football, does not want to know anything about football. And when I talk football to her, her eyes glaze over. And now you
sound like my wife.
You talk NASCAR to her now, by golly, that's another story. She was a race car driver too. So she can talk cars, she can talk engines, she can talk NASCAR. She's right there with you. You talk football, son, it's you just turned into a space alien. But last night I was trying to get her to understand what the option game was, and I asked her, "Do you not understand what 2-on-1 basketball is?" And she looked at me like I was from the moon. I said, it's when you get a fast break on a defense, you've got one defender, it's you and your teammate, and you're driving the ball, and you've got an option of passing it off or going in for the layup. And I had to have this deep conversation with her, and I even pulled up some old Air Force film, which I think was from, 95 or so, and to show her what I was talking about. And she had to look at it 4 or 5 times. I said, okay, well, yeah, I guess I can understand that now. Do you have this kind of difficulty in relaying this to players who've never run the option before?
No. It's going to lie here. Johnny, I'm not going to go out and start a quarterback that can't see. I'm going to start one that knows how to look out and say, Johnny, if there's an overhang player out there, you're taking the option in the other direction towards the tight end. Or you're going to take the option based upon alignments. If there's an overhang player, then I'm a pistol flexbone guy. That's what we're running where I'm at. But if I see an overhang player, especially if I pair an option, if there's an overhang player and I want that ball going to that direction, I'm going to look at the defensive end to see if he's playing a 5 or a 4 technique, because that's going to dictate what that overhang player is getting ready to do. So, like I said early, the key to learning is repetition. I'm not going to walk out on the field and hold a clinic. That's what I'm going to do over the telephone, or that's what I'm going to do in the office. But when we get out on that field, our kids are going to learn by doing. And when we go out and get into our group and team periods, John, our goal is to run 2.5 plays a minute. And when we do this, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to give our quarterback, in regards to his read, the 3 top defenses that our opponent is running. And then I'm going to throw a bastardized type defense in there, something that we haven't seen or they haven't seen, to see how they react to it. And I want to see how the offensive line will react to the blocking scheme once he puts us into what he thinks we should run. So that's what I'm going to do with that. So when we get out to practice, I'm going to run 3 in a row of their top 3 defensive schemes, and I'm going to pop in something that they haven't themselves maybe seen on film, and as they prepare themselves as well. But that quarterback is going to spend time looking at overhang players and reading those defensive ends in regards to their alignment and putting us in the best option.
Let's go ahead and talk midline.
Okay. With option on me, if the quarterback sees that invert weak, he knows we're going to the other side, and the first place he's going to look is that offensive guard to see if he's got a 2 or a 3 technique, and if he sees that we're going into midline. A technique that you want to teach your offensive guard, I'm going to talk about him for a second, because this guy is key to this. And the technique that we're going to teach him is the same technique we're going to teach an offensive tackle, in regards to his inside release. What we're going to do is that if that quarterback puts us into that midline, or what we're going to ask our guard to do is this. I want you to avoid that 2 or 3 technique if at all possible. I don't want you to touch him, because this is the reason why. Those 2s and 3 techniques are being taught to squeeze any inside release by those guards, because they don't want them up on those linebackers. So they're going to try to knock them off their path. So what we ask that guard to do is this, is when you inside release, what I want you to do is push away off that play side foot and push parallel to the line of scrimmage. So you're pushing away from that 3 technique as much as possible without touching him, to facilitate a harder squeeze, because if we get the big squeeze, it probably means that the guy's taking the quarterback. So what we're going to do to avoid is, when we push away, because I call it push away, is ask him to take his play side hand, and when he pushes away, I want him to reach down and grab grass, because what happens with that, John, is that he gets that play side shoulder tip reduced, and it doesn't drag, so it avoids contact with that 2 or 3 technique. So he's avoiding contact by grabbing grass as he pushes away from him to get that shoulder tip reduced. So what we do is, as you grab grass, take that backside hand and swing it up, and what it does, it looks almost like the blade of a propeller when he does this thing, as he pushes away from it. So you're picking grass, and your aiming point is the near jersey number of that play side linebacker. So as you work up to the play side jersey number, this is what I tell him, if that play side jersey number comes at you, you're going to block him. If the inside jersey number goes away, I want you to climb to the third level, which is usually that safety. Because the great thing about the midline, and I've talked about this before, is that the midline turns you're trying to turn that free safety into a linebacker. You want to keep him from immediately running those alleys. What that free safety has to do is now step up, check the midpoint of the offense for the midline. So what we're trying to do is make him take an additional step up before he can run the alley. And if he does, then we're getting him a step behind in defending this if the quarterback gets the pull read running the outside grass area of the offense. So the offensive guard, and the way that you can do this, if you were to go to one of the academies like Cal Poly here, when their offensive guard inside releases, or their offensive tackle on inside veer, because it's going to be the same technique, they will use a towel or a tennis ball to overemphasize the technique. They'll set that tennis ball down on the ground, and or a towel, and when he inside releases, he has to pick it up. So that keeps him from dragging his shoulder. And I'm also going to do this. I want to know if the defensive line coach that's working with his kids has a rule for splits. I tell our offensive guard, Johnny, when you get to the line of scrimmage and you see the 3 technique, go ahead and take a 3 to a 4 foot split, and we're going to find out, when does a 3 technique turn into a 2? When does a 2 turn into a 1? So we're going to challenge his split rule and see what that defensive line coach is teaching him to do, because that's going to set the next option up, which is the load option. So the big thing is this. If I teach the technique of picking grass, because that really overemphasizes the technique. And how do I know that Johnny picked grass on that technique? I know when Johnny comes back to the huddle or back to the line of scrimmage, I know that he's picked grass, because I'm going to ask him to show me the grass. The little farts will do this, so sometimes they'll pick that grass up before they even do it, and says when they come back, here you go, coach, here's the grass. So, I'm being a little smart, Alex, but that's how I'm going to overemphasize that technique, and I call it picking grass on the inside release. And how do I know you pick grass? I want you to show me the grass when you come back. And that's what we're going to do. And John, when we run the midline, when I scheme this, I always want to have 2 blockers tracking play side linebacker to free safety. So we've got a helmet for a helmet. So what I usually do, if you're a flex bone, you'll use the wing. If you play with a tight end, you can use the tight end on this fold scheme. So what we're going to do, and there's 7 different blocking schemes on the perimeter that a coach can use in regards to running this play. But when I put all this together, I called my folds Jack and Jill. Why do I call them Jack and Jill? Because I don't want to use all these different terms that coaches have for a fold scheme. Like, for example, and the coaches that are listening to this will understand this. You know, there's tugs and guts and cogs and eddies, all kinds of things for a fold scheme. But what I'm going to do is only teach the Jack and Jill scheme. And what that means is if I ever alert Jack to a fold scheme, that means the tight end, or that means that the tight end is going to block down and the tackle's coming around outside. If I teach the Jill fold scheme, that means the tackle is going to block out and now the tight end is coming in. So if I run the Jill scheme to the midline, that means I've got the slot or the tight end track and play side linebacker to free safety as well. So what we've got is an offensive guard and a tight end or slot track and play side linebacker. And like I told the guard, if the inside jersey number of the play side linebacker goes away, I want you to climb to the free safety. And if it does go away, that means the tight end or the outside blocker is tracking the outside jersey number of the linebacker. So if that linebacker is scraping outside, then we have a defender for him. So we are going to take the play side backer to the free safety out of the game and put a helmet on him. But the nice thing about the midline, once again, it turns that safety into a linebacker to where he has to step up and defend that midpoint before he runs the alley. So that's why I want to run that play. So that's what we teach him to do. Once again, the guard, he's going to push away, and then he's going to grab grass on his inside release, and he's going to take his inside arm and swing it up as he releases, and that assists that play side hand to get to that grass a lot faster, and it reduces the shoulder tip. Some of the things that we're going to teach him.
There's one thing that I saw, and I looked at a lot of tape before I actually saw this, that and I think it was Oklahoma I was watching. They were playing an option team. It might have been Iowa State or somebody like that. The three technique, what he was doing when the guard, as you were saying, was trying to gain separation, picking grass, and he was going down and making that movement, dipping that shoulder. And the one thing I saw the three technique doing was he was grabbing the guard and he was freezing it, and I think he was trying to complicate the read of the quarterback. Is there? Have you seen that before?
Well, I look at it this way: if that three technique can grab that offensive guard on his inside release, that means he's bringing that three technique down. So the harder I push away from you, once again, John, I want you to answer this question. If the guard can't get to the play side linebacker, do we care?
I guess not in this case.
No, because we've got a fold scheme that's coming back inside, accounting for that linebacker. So if they want to sit there and try to grab that guard as he inside release, that's why you have to really work the technique of push away and grab grass, because if he is doing that, then he's probably going to take the dive, because I'm going to push away grabbing that grass, and I'm really going to bring him down. So that's taking him to the fullback anyway.
Let's go ahead and take another break. We'll catch more of Jerry Campbell. I think we're going to talk load when we come back, so stick with us.
Improve your game planning this season with Easy Scout XP Plus by CompuSports. This affordable football scouting software makes it easy and fun to collect, organize, and analyze your scouting data. With Easy Scout XP Plus, your computer works hard so you can work smart. Easy Scout XP Plus reveals offensive and defensive tendencies, providing information that enables you to create better game plans in less time than using pencil and paper. With Easy Scout XP Plus, you will save time, record scouting information using your terminology. You can even customize it so it works the way you want it to. Easy Scout XP Plus, proven for more than 25 years, from high school to the pros. And now the newest version works on more types of portable computers with lots of user-friendly tools and features. Now you and your staff can make the game planning process more efficient and gain a competitive edge. Get started on your next winning season. Get your copy of CompuSports Easy Scout XP Plus today.
This segment is sponsored by Easy Scout Pro, the video scouting program. It's available for as low as $11.95 a month or $99 a year, available at CompuSports.com.
Jerry Campbell is my guest on this week's Mesh Point, and we're talking with Coach Campbell about option on me, and we've already covered the inside veer, we've covered the midline, and now here's the one that probably folks are identifying option with the most, and it's probably the load, although we have all these other options. We've seen Oregon, what looks like they have 1,001 options, and really they're just doing inside zone, outside zone, but they've got a lot of formations and stuff going on, and it looks more complicated than what it really is.
Yeah, you know, what you want to be able to do is you want to make it simple for your kids, but you want to make it look complicated to your opponent. How are they doing that? That is what I want them to come up with over there. How are they doing all this? But at the same time, I want to make it very simple for the kids on my side of the ball, but make it complicated on them, having to figure out how are they getting themselves into those plays.
All right, let's go ahead and talk load here. Most folks can identify load with the angle blocking and the cutoff blocking and that sort of thing, and you're still letting perimeter guys run free, but
yes,
you're really defining and you're really compacting the option down quite a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, and in regards to this load scheme, I want to go out and I want to perfect the midline. And if I go speak at a clinic in the area and those types of things, the only thing I want to talk about is the midline, because coaches will come and listen to that we play, and in their mind, well, we'll show him, we ain't going to give him a 3 technique. Well, that's what I'm trying to get him to do. Show the old man that we can defend the midline, and next thing they know, we have set the load scheme up, and that's the play I want. So what we do with that, John, is this, coaches, when I want them to defend the midline because I want to get good at it. And when that happens, and good to me is maybe only running that play 3 or 4 times a game. But if they know that we can run that play successfully, they'll defend it, and they'll start squirming their defensive schemes down, which some guys will call an underfront, which is a reduced front. So what we're doing, that quarterback, if he sees that there's no 3, and what he's going to do is check us into the load scheme. And what the load option, what I like about them defending the midline is this. When they defend the midline, they have set up 2 combination blocks for my offensive line. And 2 combos is usually going to be a guard and center combo on a 1 technique. And then the next combo for load option is going to be the tackle and tight end, who is probably combo on the 5 technique, which is the 5 technique, for coaches that don't know this, is a defender that's lined up on the outside shoulder of an offensive tackle. So the tight end is blocking down. We're going to leave that outside overhang player, who has now stepped up to the line of scrimmage because they've had to reduce up to the line of scrimmage, and give him to the quarterback. Most guys will understand load option throughout the country, and I changed this a long time ago, because when I was watching film back in the day, the best player is usually the free safety. I want us to load that guy. I don't want to load the in-man on the line of scrimmage. I want the quarterback to have him. All right, so what we're going to do is I want to create 2 combos to the call side and load option, and usually what 2 double teams will do as we track linebackers is you don't get any upfield penetration by the down defender, because you can usually seal him with 2 blockers and he can't get that penetration upfield, which will knock that play off. So what they did for us is allowed our offensive line to get into 2 double combos towards the call. And what we do, John, is when we get that, we're going to give the quarterback that outside overhang player to read on whether to keep it or pitch it. So what we tell the fullback is this: on the snap of the ball, we want you running at the inside jersey number of the read. All right? We want you running his inside jersey number. If that inside jersey number goes upfield, then you're in tracking the free safety. All right? We've gained a step on this because that free safety first will probably step up and defend the midline and then scrape. So it gives us a better chance in regards to getting a hat on a hat with him. So we're going to take him out of the game by doing this. But for coaches that are listening to this, if I want to block that overhang player, I'm going to call it block option. And I'm going to run block option a couple times, and I'm going to marry block option with load option. Because that overhang player is looking at that fullback running at him. He sees that fullback running at the inside jersey number, and if he's up the field, then the fullback is in. If that outside overhang player comes down, that means he's taking quarterback, so the fullback is going to arc outside of him. All right? So where does block option come in? It comes in like this. If we put ourselves into block option, that overhang player gets put into a situation, oh my gosh, what's that fullback going to do to me? Is he going to block me or is he going to bypass me? Because if we get into block option, it's telling the fullback this, I want you to run at the overhang player and then I want you to block him. All right? Then if we run load option, run at the overhang player and bypass him. So for the overhang player, is he going to block me or is he going to bypass me? And it puts him in conflict. So that's what we're trying to do with him. And by having the tight end blocked down, a lot of coaches will sit there and run stretch option and have their quarterback run at the outside jersey number. And then if they outside invert stretches, then the quarterback is cutting it up. I don't want to do that. I want to sit there and keep all that grass open for our quarterback and pitchman to run at. So that's what we're going to do. So the inside veer's going weak, midline and load option is going strong. So in regards to option on me, those are the three choices that our quarterback has in regards to doing this. And once again, option on me is geared to keeping the offensive line in the best possible blocking situation that we can get them in, because I'm going to take care of them before I take care of anybody.
Coach, we've talked about inside veer, we've talked about midline, we've talked about load, we've talked about waxing Mickey's ears, we've talked about the three techniques, attacking certain players, double teams, the picking grass. Let's talk about pairing options.
Yeah. Hey, John, let's say that we want to run to our open end inside no matter what. I can pair the load option with the veer. And here's what starts to take place to an open-ended side. Defensive coordinators understand when you run inside veer, you're trying to get an inside veer released by your offensive tackle. And what they're going to do is try to knock that offensive tackle off from being able to do that. So what they do is they start getting heavy with the overhang player. And what I mean by heavy, he starts getting tighter to the line of scrimmage. And what that does to a 5 technique, it starts moving him head up or inside shade of that offensive tackle. So what we do then is, Johnny, I want you to go out and pair veer with load to an open-ended side. And I use a number system, or you can use words or stuff like that for the quarterback to alert, putting our offensive scheme in the best blocking scheme. So if the quarterback sees a 5 technique, we're running inside veer because that means the tackle can get down inside. If they start getting heavy on the perimeter with their invert and they start moving that 5 technique to a 4 or to a 4-eye, which is inside shade of that tackle, the quarterback is going to put us into load. So we can also run a load scheme to an open-ended side based upon the overhang player and how he aligns. Option on me is best run to an overhang player that's playing at the same level as those linebackers. If he's not playing at the same level and he's now getting heavy on the edge, we can start to pair the play. So I'm going to pair veer with load to an open-ended side. So if that defensive end is aligned inside or on top of that offensive tackle, he's going to put us into load because it means that that defensive end is probably slanting. He's going to be a B-gap defender. So if the quarterback puts us into load, it brings that guard and tackle around. So we're going to combo that 4 to a 4-eye, and we are going to wall the play side linebacker off. So it's put us into the best blocking scheme. So pairing option, pair veer with the load. If they're going to defend the veer, it's going to set the load scheme up, which is going to allow your offensive line a better opportunity to seal a scrape and play side linebacker. So I'd pair those two plays. And then what I can do is go out and I can pair what I call 10 and 11 midline, 10 being to the right, 11 being to the left. I can set, pair 10 and 11 with each other, and the quarterback can come to the line of scrimmage. And if he sees that they're defending the midline towards the tight end, and they've moved down into that underfront, which has given us a 1 technique to the tight end, and now that 3 technique sets to the open side, we'll run midline to the open side. So, Johnny, put us into the best midline you can, and we'll pair those two plays. The next thing that you can do, John, is you can pair the load with the midline towards the tight end, and you can go 10 or 18, let's say on me, which 18 is the load scheme, 10 is the midline. If you don't want to set them go option on me, which also gives him an open side look as well. But it comes back to this. If you have a systematic way to teach, then your kids have a systematic way to learn. I have coached 41 years now, and I'm praying to God every night I go to bed. I have 41 years left, and it comes down to this. You don't go out on a football field and hold a clinic. You go out there and kids learn by repetition. We are out there to run 2.5 plays a minute, so we're coaching on the run. The more reps we get, the better the kids will understand all these things. And I'm not going to go out and teach something that I can't correct in the heat of a battle in a game. And I equate this to this. For all the coaches that are out there married and have children, when your kids get sick, they're usually coming to daddy or mama to make them feel better. So it comes down to the same thing. In a football game, if your players are not having success and things aren't going well for them, they are going to be on the sideline looking at you to help them. And I want to be able to make sure that I have a system that I can help them when they come off the sideline and I have them on the whiteboard, that I can get this thing corrected and we can get back to running successful football plays. So I tell you, we score lots of points at our school and we run for lots of yards because I'm going to teach things I know how to correct. And I'm going to make sure I give kids a situation that they understand. So I'm not going to teach anything I can't fix in versus worst case scenario when we go out on the field. So we've got the ability to go option on me, which gives us midline, their open side, and then midline and load or block option towards the tight end. If I don't want to do that, then I can go out and I can pair some plays based upon those overhang players starting to reduce or getting heavy towards the line of scrimmage, because I'm going to take care of the offensive line. Because it's all about production and getting running backs into the end zone and running for lots of yards and keeping the ball away from our opponents.
I know that you have a long history of using multiple formations and moving guys all over the place and basically doing the same thing. And we talked a little bit about that, which was the same thing we were trying to do 30 years ago, except we were trying to do it with a more multiple pro-style type of offense. Do you still do the same thing today that you were doing all these years ago as far as multiple formations and motions?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be able to teach your kids to run the same plays in as many formations that you can do it. I want to be able to run the midline from multiple formations because I want to get away from tendencies. I want to be able to run the same plays with multiple formations and motions. Because I get to travel around the country a lot and working with coaches, the most successful programs in our nation run very few things. But what they do run, they run very well because their kids don't play confused. So you don't need lots of plays. What you need is being able to run the same plays from multiple looks so it doesn't create tendencies. So that's what we try to do. So we put motion and numerous formations into the offense. What we've also done is allowed our quarterback to call the motions on the line of scrimmage. And we're only going to run 2 motions. Our motions are called Momo and JoJo. Our quarterback will come to the line of scrimmage and look to the guy that he wants the motion based upon what we want to do, and he'll either alert Momo or JoJo as he looks at him. So we're calling the motions on the line of scrimmage, and they're not called in the huddle.
My guest today on the Mesh Point has been Jerry Campbell, nationally renowned clinic speaker and prolific writer. The Mesh Point is one of many types of resources for option football coaches that is available right here at optioncentral.net. Make sure you check out our regular coaches program, the Coaches Corner Radio Show, available at www.CompuSportsRadio.com. Coach, it's been great to have you on the program.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure to be here, and I do want to say this. I want to thank you guys for what you do for coaches around this country. You put a lot of football into the living room, and you are to be complimented on that, because we all need to get better. We all can't be satisfied with what we're doing, because the day you get satisfied, it means somebody has caught up with you. And so I want to thank you guys for what you do, for all that you do for us coaches.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone, for listening here on The Mesh Point. Coach, I understand you have a new book.
Coaches, if any of you are interested, I have recently published a new manual entitled Taking the Option Game to the Next Level, which can be found in my store on my website at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. And all you need to do is go to the offensive store there and look for this manual, which is called Taking the Option Game to the Next Level. And it is loaded with information, which also includes the passing game that goes along with running an option attack. So it's 300-plus pages, and it is a complete library on how to do all of this, and provides a lot of information and a system for installing it.
Well, it's starting to rain up here at the studio. That means the goat needs to come inside. Matter of fact, she's outside the window staring at me right now. So, folks, we will see you next time here on The Mesh Point. And, Coach, I'm going to have to get with you about that lobster casserole. We just...
Well, bring your checkbook.
Thank you, Coach, and have a great day. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next time.